French President Emmanuel Macron is expected to address the public this Monday. That's after yet another violent weekend of yellow vest protests in Paris. Parts of the city centre were left strewn with burned out cars, shattered glass and rubber bullets in what was some of the worst rioting in over a decade. RT's Charlotte Dubensky reports from the French capital.
Well, that address to the nation is eagerly awaited by many yellow vest protesters who've been asking for President Macron to speak to them directly since the start of these protests back on November 17th. This will be the first time that he will have directly addressed them, and many people are wondering what he will say and what he might offer them as a way to appease some of the tensions and the requests from those protesters. Well, we've also been hearing from the French finance minister, who's described these protests that have been going on now for the last 4 weekends as being an economic catastrophe with France, with French economic growth being reduced by 0.1% as a result of them. Now, we have also been hearing that while we've been describing these protests as being a spontaneous social movement over the last few weeks, there is in fact something deeper and darker behind it. It's social media. Mainstream media outlets now suggesting that Facebook algorithms could be to blame for spreading these protests, and Twitter, yes, those pesky Russian bots, they're at it again with some 200 accounts retweeting or tweeting 1,600 times a day. To put that in context, that's on average 8 tweets or retweets per account. On Saturday, I think I tweeted at least 12 times, so it's not a huge amount. The French authorities have said that they're launching an investigation into this alleged interfering by Russia once again, but they said that they won't speculate as to the result of that until that investigation is ended. That's according to the foreign minister, who's also taken out to hit out against Donald Trump after he sent this tweet on Saturday.
The Paris Agreement isn't working out so well for Paris. Protests and riots all over France. People do not want to pay large sums of money, much to third world countries that are questionably run, in order to maybe protect the environment, chanting, "We want Trump, love France."
I am telling Donald Trump, and the President of the Republic also told him, we do not take part in America's debates. Leave our nation out of it.
Donald Trump saying in that tweet that people on the streets of France and in Paris were chanting, "We want Trump." Well, we didn't hear anything such like that, but we decided to ask the protesters if they did indeed want Trump.
The French want revolution. They don't want Macron. They want him and the French government to resign.
No, I don't want Trump or Macron. It's dangerous. I'm not sure who's worse. Trump is rich, a billionaire, and just like Macron, for me, he's not a politician.
No one in France would have voted for Trump. For us, Trump represents the very worst of our own president.
We want a new power in France, something about equality and with a balanced system. Something like that. We have a king, and we don't want the king anymore.
It seems the protesters don't want Trump, nor do they want Macron either. Many will be waiting, though, with bated breath to see what the president will say to the country this evening. Will it quell the tensions? We won't know. The social tension is there. The protests are continuing today in France, and the Yellow Vests have said they will be out again in force this weekend for what they're describing as Act 5. Charlotte Dubensky, RT, Paris.
Some outlets suggest social media is a driving force behind these riots and not French fiscal policy.
There have also been suggestions that bad actors are stirring up this pot, whether it's bots, whether it's the social media invaders, as we've seen in many, many other instances of elections and other such things. This whole thing has been revved up on the social media.
Can you imagine all of this upheaval, hundreds of thousands of French in the streets every day. Don't forget, we've got these massive demonstrations on Saturdays, but every day in thousands of villages and towns across the country, we've got demonstrations. I think this is totally irresponsible. This is preposterous. This is incredible that they even dare say this. They're so disconnected, the French elite and the Western elite. They don't assume the responsibility, and they have to do some finger pointing and find a scapegoat. And at the end, of course, as is always the case today, when there's a problem in the West, then they have to blame at one point Russia. This is ridiculous, and nobody believes that in France today, besides maybe a couple people around Macron.